Welcome to Satluj TV News. You're watching the News Hour with Angus Scott in London. It's Monday, the 8th of May. These are the main headlines from around the world. Carnage in Texas as two mass killings devastate the US state. Peacekeepers rush to Saudi Arabia to stop Sudan sinking into civil war. 54 dead in India violence as 23,000 flee the clashes. Police rescue over 1,000 victims forced to run Philippine internet scam farm. And a weekend of celebrations in the UK as King Charles III is crowned. Welcome to the News Hour. These are today's main stories in detail. The state of Texas suffered carnage across the weekend as two serious incidents left 16 dead and several injured. In Brownsville, 8 people were killed outside a migrant centre when an SUV ploughed into a crowd of people queuing at a bus stop, believed to be mainly Venezuelan nationals. At least 10 others were injured. Police still remain unclear if the killings were an accident or intentional. And in a Dallas area outlet mall, a gunman started shooting people indiscriminately, killing 8 and wounding 7 others, 3 critically, before being killed by a police officer who happened to be nearby. The shooting is the latest eruption of what has been an unprecedented pace of mass killings in the US. Fighting is raging in Sudan as the UN, Saudi Arabia and the US are racing through talks to try to reduce the catastrophic events from spiralling. The UN's chief aide has joined US negotiators in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, as between them they try to broker a peace deal and reduce the humanitarian disaster unfolding in Sudan. The two warring factions, the Sudanese army and the RSF, have both sent envoys to Jeddah for direct talks to broker a potential new ceasefire. Multiple truce deals have been declared without effect since fighting erupted between army and paramilitary forces in April, and over 100,000 people are now believed to have fled the country. Those unable to flee are now facing dire shortages of water, food, medicines and other staples. Some 23,000 people have fled ethnic violence in northeast India that has reportedly killed at least 54 people. The unrest in Manipur state erupted after a protest march by a tribal group last week sparked clashes, with vehicles and houses set on fire and authorities firing tear gas. The military has deployed thousands of troops to the state bordering Myanmar, issued shoot-at-sight orders in extreme cases, imposed curfews and cut off the internet. India's northeast has seen decades of unrest among ethnic and separatist groups seeking more autonomy or even secession from India, with at least 50,000 people killed in Manipur since the 1950s. In the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, the death toll from floods and landslides triggered by heavy rain has risen to nearly 400. Heavy rainfall in the Kalehe region of South Kivu province last week caused rivers to overflow, triggering landslides that engulfed several villages. The provincial government has sent a boat filled with beans, flour and other food, tarpaulins and medicine to assist in the aftermath. In all, several villages were submerged, many houses washed away and fields devastated as the death toll mounts. This disaster came 2 days after floods killed at least 131 people and destroyed thousands of homes in neighbouring Rwanda, which lies on the other side of Lake Kivu. Philippine authorities have rescued over 1,000 people from several Asian nations who were trafficked into the country, held captive and forced to run online scams. International alarm has grown in recent months over internet scams in the region, often staffed by trafficking victims, tricked or coerced into promoting bogus crypto investments. Officers raided a cluster of buildings in Mabalacat city, about 90 kilometers north of Manila. The victims were mostly Chinese nationals, Vietnamese, Filipinos and Indonesians, and had been trained to entice strangers into buying cryptocurrency or depositing money into bogus bank accounts after establishing fake romantic relationships. At least 27 workers have been killed in a fire at a remote gold mine in southern Peru. The blaze was sparked by a short circuit and quickly engulfed one of the tunnels, leading to one of the worst mining tragedies in the South American country's recent history. The victims were 100 metres below ground in the La Esperanza 1 mine in the Arequipa region, Mining is one of the engines of the Peruvian economy, the largest gold and copper producer in Latin America, accounting for more than 8% of its GDP. Peru is the world's second largest producer of silver, copper and zinc. The Arab League has readmitted Syria's government, ending a more than decade-long suspension and securing President Bashar al-Assad's return to the Arab fold after years of isolation. In November 2011, the body suspended Damascus over its crackdown on peaceful protests, which had begun earlier that year and which spiralled into a war that has killed more than 500,000 people, displaced millions and battered the country's infrastructure and its industry. Several Arab countries cut ties with Syria early in the conflict, betting on Assad's demise, while some, including Qatar and Saudi Arabia, provided support to the Syrian opposition. At least 22 people have died when a double-decker tourist boat capsized in India's southern state of Kerala. The incident happened late last night in Tannur, a coastal town in the Malappuram district. Rescue operations are ongoing. Dozens of people search for survivors in and around the stricken vessel during the night, which was partially submerged. Most of the victims were children on school holidays, and survivors have stated that many of the passengers were not wearing life jackets. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has pledged more than $100 million for Brazil's fund to protect the Amazon rainforest at a meeting with President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The British contribution is aimed at stopping deforestation and saving the region's rich biodiversity, said a Downing Street spokesman. The investment is the latest diplomatic win for Brazil, as it seeks to get wealthy nations to help bankroll the fight to save the world's biggest rainforest. Iran has executed Swedish Iranian dissident Habib Chab for terrorism in the Islamic Republic's latest use of the death penalty against dual nationals. Chab had been held in Iran since October 2020, after he vanished during a visit to Turkey before going on trial in Tehran, which does not recognise dual nationality. Convicted of corruption on earth for heading a rebel group, he was condemned to death on December the 6th, a decision denounced by Sweden, and Iran's Supreme Court upheld the sentence in March. Aftershocks have shaken Japan after the weekend after a powerful earthquake left at least one person dead, with officials assessing damage from the jolt that destroyed several buildings. The 6.5 magnitude quake hit the central Ishikawa region mid-afternoon Friday at a depth of 12 kilometres. More than 50 aftershocks, some of them strong, have occurred over the weekend as a warning is issued that heavy rain could now trigger landslides in the area. Japan suffered a massive 9 magnitude undersea quake off its northeast coast in 2011, which triggered a tsunami that left around 18,500 people dead or missing. And finally, the UK celebrated the coronation of King Charles III on Saturday, as more than 14 million people tuned in to watch the ceremony on the BBC alone. Saturday's coronation, the first to be held in Britain in 70 years, was only the second to be televised and the first to be shown in colour. The King and Queen greeted rain-drenched crowds with smiles and waves from the balcony of Buckingham Palace shortly after their coronations. The weekend celebrations were rounded off last night as a star-studded concert was held at Windsor Castle in front of an audience of 20,000 people and broadcast to millions more across the country and the world. Charles and Queen Camilla watched on from a royal box in the grounds of the castle west of London, as Lionel Richie, Katy Perry and British band Take That topped the bill of performers. You've been watching the News Hour on Satluj TV, and you can find more stories in detail on our channel, Satnet News. So it's worth clicking on the subscribe button to make sure you get to see stories as they're broadcast. And don't forget, if you have any comments or opinions on any of our news stories, you can comment below, or indeed drop us a direct message at message@satlujtv.com, and we'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, thanks for watching. For Satluj TV News, I'm Angus Scott in London.